come and speak, and I'm very honored to do that. I wish they had these horns when I was a younger engineer. They didn't. We're very classical when I was growing up. But I got asked to do this, and I wasn't sure what to speak on. It's very open topics, and so I started thinking, can I talk about my experiences, what constellations in the 90s versus constellations today, about OneWeb. And I started thinking about, you're going to get a lot of that over the next couple of days. There's a lot of presentations. So I wanted to take a little bit more personal route and tell you about my favorite lessons learned over my career of 25 plus years. So to start off, I want to take you back to kind of where and how I got into the space industry. So I have to tell you, I think it's very, very cool that we've got some astronauts presenting here, because they were my inspiration. I didn't really recognize it at the time, but when I was a young junior high student, we were doing the first shuttle launches. And for those that probably a lot of you in this room were not born yet, I recognize, but at this time, this was all over the news. It was on all the major channels. They were down at the Cape Canaveral. They were waiting for the landing. I mean, it was big, big time news. And the excitement around space was off the chart. And what I realize now looking back is that's what inspired me. That's what kind of got into my soul of something I wanted to do going forward. Now fast forward, I went to engineering school, I got my degree, I stayed in New York, I did some management consulting. What I realized then is I wasn't doing my passion, so what I did is I reverted back, I got a master's degree in engineering, and I got on the Iridium program back in the 90s. I was a very young engineer, and I had no clue that I had been given such an amazing opportunity. To me, when I got in and was talking about building satellites, everyone built satellites in 20 days. Why was that? I didn't know any different, I didn't know to challenge it. And I learned a lot of great lessons along the way. I then did some cellular work with Motorola, and when I was doing the cellular deployments, I've been learning a lot, but it just wasn't still my passion. It felt like inside I was missing something. So I came back to Arizona and did some satellite programs at Spectrum Astro, which then led me to doing a few one-off satellites. And again, there's something in me that said there's something else I want to do, something bigger, grander. So when I heard Iridium Next was starting up to build the next constellation, I jumped at the opportunity to be one of the first people to start that up. And I spent about 7 years doing the Iridium Next constellation. And then I got the call about OneWeb. And what's amazing is this kind of my whole life came full circle, because now here I am building, again, one of the largest constellations ever deployed. So bringing all the experiences back. And why I'm telling you all this, because I want you to know my history when I get into why these are my favorite 3 lessons learned along those 25 and a half years. So my first lesson I learned is benchmark the best. I can't stress to you how important it is to go out and seek and find the best companies that are doing something that you're trying to solve. And it doesn't have to be in your industry. In fact, it shouldn't be in your industry. You should really look outside the industry of space and across the globe to find out the best ones. And I'll have a little bit more on each one of these. The second one is pathfinders and practice. It's true what your music teachers and your coaches and your parents told you. Practice, practice, practice. That's what makes it perfect. And that's one thing I think your generation is doing much, much better than we did. We did very classical documentation, classical need, and your generation is really getting out there and doing a lot of this. So I probably am preaching to the choir a bit here. And the last one might not seem obvious, but it's hear them now, believe them later. They're just talking about mentors. And trust me, your mentors and your bosses and your leaders are telling you things today that you might not believe. But 20 years from now, you're going to look back and go, wow, they actually were smarter than I was giving them credit for. And that's a very humbling one to learn. So benchmarking. This isn't working. Okay, the first thing you want to do is determine what it is you're trying to solve. Why am I trying to solve it? What is it exactly? Am I trying to get a cost down? Am I trying to get the schedule down? Am I trying to get more performance out of it? What is it I really need to improve, and how am I going to go about doing that? Then think outside your industry. Think about who might solve this. And I'll give you my example, which was such a great, fun experience, and we're going to do it again on OneWeb. Back in the 90s, we were launching satellites from 3 different places in the globe. We were going to Russia, we were going to China, we were going to the United States. So we had to get equipment shipped across all these different locations. We had to process the satellites with one team who could do it anywhere in the world, different power sources, different environments, high dollar items. So what we did was we looked into it and we said, you know what? Rock concerts. When you're going to set up a concert somewhere, you have to go to all different places of the world. You could have a concert in Los Angeles, and a few days later it'd be in Barcelona. Different power sources, a lot of high dollar equipment. What we learned in doing this and how they do it is the electrical equipment is the highest dollar value. And so they make sure that they can ship those ahead of time, make sure that they're going to be there on time. The other thing that rock concerts have is they ship all over the world. So we benchmarked how they did that. Schedule is very, very critical for rock concerts. If you don't, if they miss that date, that's millions of dollars of revenue and lost opportunity. Safety, human safety was a factor. And quality, how to be repeatable. So they had to go anywhere in the world. They had to get road crews that had knew nothing about the stage and get it assemble it quickly. So think about what other industries might have something that you're trying to achieve. The other thing is pathfinders. And like I said, I know you guys do this very well in your generation. But figure out how to do something really cheap and dirty. Get it, play with it, touch it, see what it feels like. Practice it, and then once you have a pathfinder or a tool set or a test bed, practice, learn from it, keep developing it, refine as you go. And then the last thing that is on your pathfinders is don't forget to focus on the processes as well. A lot of us get focused on the technology, how are we going to improve the technology, how are we going to deliver more performance, but think about too how you're going to build it, how you're going to test it. And that's where pathfinders and test beds can really come into play. Like the bottom right corner there, that's one of the Iridium mock-up satellites we use to test going through the factory, make sure that the people can actually touch it and feel it and go through those processes. And the advantage is you do that before you have flight hardware. If you make a mistake, okay. It's okay to learn, it's okay to fail, because what you're trying to do is learn something before you have the expensive flight hardware in your hands. And then my last one, which you might not believe me now, but hear me, because one day you might believe it, you are going to hear things that you're going to get from your mentors, from your bosses, from your leaders. And these are a few that have stuck with me over time, and trust me, some of these really, really pissed me off when I heard them the first time. I remember I had a boss that used to say bold assertions, we're going to be able to do this, we're going to build a satellite in 5 days. And we're like, but that's impossible, how can you claim that? It's a bold assertion, we're going to make it happen. And I had others, telling me that your desk is a conveyor belt, things are going to fall off. And I was just infuriated. How can anybody let anything fall off their desk, right? But these are things you've learned over time as you grow in your career. Some things that you might hear, and they're going to be different than what mine are, but there's things you're hearing now, things you will hear as you continue to grow that are going to stick with you. You won't know why, but trust me, in 20, 30 years, something somebody said to you now starts to make sense. It's kind of like our parents, how we all think our parents are idiots when we're teenagers, then we get to our 20s, we start growing and learning that, you know what, they're smart because they've been there and done it too. Your bosses, your mentors are the same way. So listen to it, you don't have to agree with it, you might not even, might be completely opposite of what you're thinking, but just take it to heart and remember those, because in years to come, they will make sense. So those are my top 3 favorite lessons learned, and I hope you guys will have your own to pass on to generations. And I love the idea of passing on. I think that's really, really important. So if anybody's got any questions later, find me, and I'd love to help you guys make your own lessons.